Hey everybody, today I want to speak with you about a topic that is in the sphere of relationships. As you know, relationships is one of the most important keys to having a successful life. So I'm going to talk with you about this concept which is called high and low touch people. So there are lots of different ways that people have tried to categorize others, and that would be along personality traits and so forth. In fact, one of the most popular ways that is discussed is this concept that was brought forward, Myers-Briggs, and there's a few different dimensions of people that are discussed in Myers-Briggs, and you take a test and all of this and you come out with your categories. Some of those dimensions are things like, are you introverted or are you extroverted? There's another one which is, do you tend to be a thinker or a feeler? That's one way of categorizing people. I'm going to introduce one that is very, very infrequently spoken about, which is this whole concept of high touch people and low touch people. And it's very simple, and once I describe to you how this all works, I think you'll start to realize that in your life you do meet people who kind of fit into these different categories. So let me just explain first off that a high touch person you can think of and just kind of imagine in your mind as this is somebody who, when you see them, they might reach out and give you a big hug or give you a kiss on the cheek. They'll stop everything just to have this conversation with you. And in some cases you might look at your watch and you're like, oh, when is this conversation going to be over? But they'll tend to, in some cases even talk with their hands, right? So they'll emote and you'll see expression in their face and they'll be engaging with their eyes as they speak with you. They might touch your arm or touch you on the shoulder when they're speaking with you. So they tend to be very emotional in that respect. Let's kind of look on the flip side now. And there are low touch people. So these are people who might not even say hi, or they might barely say hi as they're walking towards you in the hallway at work. They would have no physical contact, or maybe the extent of their contact might be a handshake, very little eye contact, or they might be more reserved in their emotion. They tend to have a lot of space in between you and the other person. That might be somebody who's low touch. What is kind of interesting is that there are different cultures that provide kind of stereotypes to these different low and high touch tendencies. For example, there might be some of the Latin-based countries, might be Spanish or Italian or French, that might be more high touch. So you might go to Paris or you might go to Rome and someone might give you a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. So those people might be more high touch and tend to be, more emotional. Where my family's from Japan, typically they're very low touch. There's very little, if no, physical contact between people, and they'll tend to bow rather than shake hands. And if you try to give somebody a hug, they'll actually kind of look at you funny. So there are kind of stereotypical different types of people that are out there based on the culture that they come from. Typically Germanic or British or Japanese might be more of low touch, and Latin-based countries might be more high touch. These are all very much just stereotypes, and for every stereotype that you bring up, there's going to be a lot of different people who basically go against that stereotype. So I would say be careful in applying this as a stereotype. What I would like you to do, though, is to think about, once you realize that certain people are high touch or low touch, how do you respect their boundaries, or how do you work with them in a manner that is more amenable to them? For example, if you know of somebody who is high touch, one of the most toughest and the most difficult ways that you could deal with them, and probably one of the biggest insults to them, would be if you were to ignore them. For example, I have a neighbor here who is very high touch, and the best thing that I can do is when I'm driving by, make sure that I roll down my window and I say hi and engage in a short conversation with them. The worst thing that I could possibly do would be to just speed away and drive past them and ignore them. In their mind, then, what they would be thinking of is, what did I do wrong? Why is Jim insulting me? So that's kind of the high touch person. For a low touch person, you want to be able to respect physical distance and their space, be very respectful to them, and operate kind of in the manner that they choose to. You can still be very friendly with them, you can joke with them, but just be very respectful for their space and how they want to be treated. So again, this is just a high touch and low touch. It's a very simple way of thinking and dealing with people, and I'd encourage you to find a way to put this into practice. Recognize the people who might be your friends or your family who do kind of fit in these categories, and then work with them and meet them where they're at and be flexible in how you approach them. So I hope this is helpful to you. Please try to apply this in what you do, and hopefully it will help you in some of the relationships going forward. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.